Hey guys, there's been quite a bit of discussion in the media in Japan this week because a politician made a comment that many English teachers in Japan can't speak English. And then he followed it up by saying that you don't have maths teachers teaching math that can't do math, right? Which is all 100% true, of course. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing. As some of you guys know, Japan ranks 97th in the world for English as a second language. So I can remember when they were like 38th, and then they were 50th, and then they were 60 something, and now they're 97th in the world. Basically means every other country can speak English better than the average person in Japan can, and it's true. And what he said about the teachers is true, because I've met my kids' elementary school teachers who are just normal teachers who have just been given a syllabus that includes teaching English. So here, teach this English. And so they're just doing it from the textbook, and they've got no training in English or teaching English, and so it's terrible. And I just have mentioned it in previous videos, standing outside classroom listening to a teacher saying, "Kangu rida unicycle," and then all the kids copying, "Kangu rida unicycle," and it's just tragic. It's just tragic. And then of course when I come to talk to the teachers, the elementary school teachers and the junior high school teachers, my kids' teachers, there's no English there. There's no English at all. So in fact my kids comment sometimes how painful it is to sit in an English class and be forced to say things the same way the teacher does, which is basically katakana pronunciation. So, can you ride a unicycle? Can you ride a unicycle? Painful. So listen, I just got to clarify too, those poor teachers, the average class size in Japan is like 35 kids, and it's not the teacher's problem. It's not a criticism of the teachers. It's not the teacher's problem. It's the system. It's the system that is the problem. And that guy who made that politician who made that comment, obviously it's an accurate comment. He said many English teachers in Japan can't speak English. I would say most English teachers in Japan can't speak English. They're talking about Japanese teachers, Japanese people who teach English. That's what he was talking about. And I would say not just many, I'd say most can't speak English. And it's the system. He followed it up by saying that they need to bring in a system where they test the English proficiency of all the English teachers, which that's not the solution either. And this happens regularly. What happens is, now and again, someone says, okay, we've got to address this tragic level of English that we've got in Japan, and quite often their solution is testing. So some of you might remember years ago we made a video, they had exactly the same discussion. Oh geez, doshio, what should we do? Our English is terrible, what should we do? And one of the solutions back then was that all students that are about to enter university should be tested on their English level. And that's the typical Japanese reaction to some sort of skill problem, is testing. And of course, all the testing would do, if they test all the English teachers for their English proficiency, all the tests are going to show is that they're useless at communicating in English, right? So the testing is not going to solve the problem. And they come up with all these different, another year, this same discussion, and they suggested that all English teachers should be made to go and spend time in another country, which, unless it's 10 years, it's not going to really make any difference, is it? So their solutions just don't cut it. The problem is, there's lots of problems, but the problem is the system that they have and the way that they approach English. My kids bring home their English homework, and they're just given books to go memorize all these words, and then you'll be tested on the spelling of these words. Go and do this grammar, and it's all reading and writing. There's almost zero communication in English in Japan, and of course that's the problem. They treat English like it's something that needs to be memorized, that we'll just give the kids all these textbooks and they'll just memorize all this English, and obviously that doesn't work. You know, if they looked at the people at the top of that list, that list of countries that speak English as a second language, if they looked at the countries at the top of that list, which are mainly Northern European countries, and had a look at how they approach English and that they use it for communication and it's just part of their everyday life, they'd see the problem. They'd see where they're going wrong. But they don't do that. They just keep coming up with these solutions that just won't cut it. So it's the system that's the problem. I remember my friend had a Juku, and one of those after school schools, and I was sitting there talking to him one day, and this guy came in that was a university student, and because most of the teachers at Jukus are university students, and he walked in and my friend said, oh, he's our English specialisto, right? There's that katakana pronunciation again, right? Our English specialist, our English specialisto. And I said, oh, hello, how are you? Are you having a good day? And he went, etto nandake. Right? Had no idea how to respond to that at all. Because again, he's their English specialist, but his specialty is doing the bookwork, doing the school textbooks. That's his specialty. That's what he helps the kids with. But he has no ability to communicate in English at all. So, you know, this is the problem. And it's not going to change until they recognise that the way they're going about it is wrong. The problem is too that the decision makers, you know, the politicians and the school principals and all the people that make the decisions in Japan are predominantly old men who can't speak another language. And so it's this sort of this downwards or ongoing spiral where you got people that run the place that don't know anything about learning another language, who are in charge of making the decisions, you know, and that's why nothing changes. And that's why every year that grading of number 97 in the world, there's a company that does that every year. They measure the English ability of all the different countries and then release their findings. And every year Japan continues to fall down and fall down and fall down. And because you imagine these kids now that have, you know, no English communication ability, they're going to be the English teachers of tomorrow, you know. And so it's sort of this downward spiral where it just keeps getting worse. So it's not going to change until they absolutely totally change their approach to English, because at the moment it's just treated like this thing that the kids have to go home and memorize. That's the attitude towards it. You know, my kids bring home their homework and say, oh, what, you know, what? They have these books that are basically a dictionary, just loads and loads and loads of words, and then it'll say the meaning of the word in Japanese, and then it'll probably usually say the pronunciation of the word using katakana, which is one of the key centers of their problem, is that they show the pronunciation of the words in katakana, which just doesn't cut it. Most, you know, with the exception of words like potato, and tomato, pretty well any other word, English word, you know, that you try to say, you know, truck, turaku, and because that messes them, that doesn't just mess up their pronunciation, but it also messes up their spelling. And I've seen that with my kids. They'll come home with some word and they'll be writing it, and they're writing it with the katakana pronunciation because that's what that's what's in their head. And I go, what are you writing there? Turaku. And they go, oh yeah, truck, okay. You know, so that whole katakana thing. So everything about the way it's taught, anybody that's, a lot of the people watch these videos are actually English teachers in Japan. They'll tell you, have a look down in the comments, you know, they'll tell you what it's like. You know, the ALTs, I don't know how people do that job, and it'd drive me nuts. That can you ride a unicycle class? They actually had an American young guy, like 22-year-old guy, who was the ALT, the assistant language teacher, and he stood off to the side, and the person who teaches English is the Japanese teacher, is the Japanese person. Their normal class teacher stands there and says, "Can you ride a unicycle?" And then she gets the ALT to stand there and say, "Can you ride a unicycle?" And then she says it again, and all the kids copy her. So the ALTs are just performing some English and not doing any actual teaching. Usually, not always. There are exceptions to this, but usually You know, the English is being taught by people who can't speak English. So it's not going to change until they totally overhaul their whole approach to English and start to use it as a communication thing and get people to teach it who can actually speak it. Another embarrassing sort of side point to this, I mean, the topic of this was actually the Japanese people teaching English, but some of the foreigners that they've got in Japan teaching English are not a lot better. Some of them, I'm not going to name any countries for fear of upsetting people, but they've got some people in Japan that come from other countries where English is the second language and whose pronunciation isn't really good either, and they're here teaching English, which is terrible. That's like asking me to teach you Japanese. It'd be a big mistake, wouldn't it? You know, getting me to teach you Japanese. Konnichiwa, you know, it's not going to work, is it? And that's exactly what they do. They've got Japanese people who can't speak English teaching English, and then they've got these other people from other countries whose English is just as bad, and they're here teaching English. The assumption is that because they're foreigners, they must be good at teaching English, right? Which obviously is not right, is it? I mean, there are some that are really good. Again, some of those Northern European countries, I've met people from some of those countries who speak English better than I do, right? Actually, here's another example too of English ability. Have a look in the comment section underneath our videos. We've got people watching these videos from all around the world, and a lot of them, English is their second language, and they're writing beautiful stuff in the comment section that's eloquent and beautiful English, you know. Usually the only other language you'll see in our comment section is Japanese, because you get people who watch our videos with Google Translate, and they sit there and they listen to the video and they think they understand what was said because of Google Translate, and then they'll write their response in Japanese in the comment section, which is just illustrates it, doesn't it? You've got all these people from all around the world communicating in English on this international platform, except the Japanese people who, with exceptions, there are a couple of Japanese people who watch our videos whose English is very good. But the point is that you won't usually see another language under our videos except Japanese. So, because the other people are all communicating in English and the Japanese people aren't. So, again, this is not a criticism of Japanese teachers or Japanese students or Japanese people. You know, Japanese students, and I mean, I know this from our friends and family, you know, really switched on, hard-working kids. The teachers are really hard-working, 36 kids in a class, it's ridiculous. So the students and the teachers are not the problem, it's the ridiculous system that they've got. It's failing, they know it's failing, it's getting worse and worse as their ability gets worse and worse, and they're not changing it. All they're talking about is giving some more tests, which all that does is illustrates how bad the problem is. It doesn't fix the problem, does it? So until they totally overhaul their approach to English, it's not going to get any better. Again, by the way, you always get someone, for some strange reason, whenever we talk about this, someone gets all emotional in the comments and says, Japan's Japanese, they shouldn't have to speak English. Why do you say they should have to speak English? I don't. I've never said it. In any of our thousands of videos, I've never once said anybody in Japan should speak English. Not once. All I'm talking about is what the Japanese people are talking about. Some of the Japanese politicians are saying they need to improve their English level. That's what this video is about. It's got nothing to do with it, I think. I totally agree with that comment, actually. It's Japan. The language is Japanese. I've actually said that to people here before. Occasionally you get some really polite person that I'll be speaking to, and they'll apologise to me and say, oh, I'm very sorry, I can't speak English. And I'll say, we're in Japan. You don't have to speak English. We're in Japan. I've got to speak Japanese. And I totally agree with that. So leaving that comment, I think this video is just silly, because that's not the point of the video, and it's not what was said. I'm not saying Japanese people need to speak English. Japanese politicians are saying Japanese people should speak English better than they do. Anyway, having said all that, someone will still leave a comment that totally misses the point. Doesn't matter how short a video is, how succinct I try to be. There's always somebody who totally misunderstands what was said and then emotionally responds. It's inevitable. It's the internet. Anyway, that's more than enough of that. More videos coming soon.